What people might not know, though, when they watch you on GMTV, is that you were going through so much, weren't you, in the search to have lovely little Sienna?
Yes, I was. I mean, from the very beginning, actually. I mean, it was great having Dr. Hilary on the sofa every day because I had fibroids when I was in my early 30s and had to have 3 quite major operations to remove those. And obviously that affects fertility. 20 years before, I probably would have had to have a hysterectomy. Gosh. So the whole process was really, you know, I want to get married, I want to have children, and now I may not even be able to have kids at all. So it was very harrowing, and I was still in denial, really, thinking it will all be fine, it'll all be fine. And once I had my 3rd operation, I was married with Chris, and we're thinking, actually, that's great now, you know, my womb was like a battlefield, and now everything's back on track, and we can really get on and have the family we've always dreamt of.
Yeah, but it wasn't that easy, was it, even then? And I can remember, because your tummy was so swollen, people would write in and ring in long before the days of social media, where they tweeted now, wouldn't they? But and say, oh, congratulations, you're pregnant, which is heartbreaking, because not only were you not pregnant, but trying to be, but you were still suffering so much.
I mean, the fibroids were so big, they were as big as a rugby ball, so that's equivalent of a 5-month-old fetus, basically. And it was just upsetting on every level because of that. And obviously, because I just wanted to stay positive and focused. No, actually, it's all going to be okay.
So what did you try?
Well, obviously, after I had all my operations, I went on a real health kick, first of all, and I tried lots of different things, but we eventually had to go down the route of fertility treatment. So we first tried 3 what we called IUI, which is an NHS treatment, which is less intrusive than IVF. Involves quite a lot of drugs, though. You feel like you're menopausal all the time, and it's quite tricky for a couple. And we've had 3 failures with that. So by the time I even started with IVF, I was quite an emotional wreck and just devastated by what happened to me up to that point.
And I can remember when you found out, I might cry actually, so we won't do that, but I can remember when you found out that one of your things had been unsuccessful. I just found out this morning that I was having Billy, and it was terrible, wasn't it? Because I couldn't tell you. And it was just awful to watch you going through this incredible struggle to have
This is the problem with IVF. It's such an emotional roller coaster, and most of the time it does fail because the rates are probabilities less than 20%, particularly for someone my age. So that morning I found out that it hadn't worked. I was absolutely devastated. I remember you coming into my dressing room and we just cried our eyes out.
I know.
And obviously I didn't know you were pregnant at the time. And it's a really tricky one. It's a tricky one for friends as well because, you know, we desired the same thing.
Yeah, I know. Well, look, thank goodness you made it. And you've got lovely little Sienna, who I know you think of as your miracle baby. She's absolute sweetheart. I mean, she came early. She surprised you. And I can remember we had a weekend by the coast recently, by the seaside, didn't we? And we were reading your book that you've written, Colin the Cloud, Billy and Sienna, who thankfully are not too far apart, so they still play together a lot. And it must be just such a magical thing to know you made it.
I just can't believe it, Kate. Every day I feel like, do have a miracle baby there. We did try the IVF after Sienna as well. And actually, by then, my experience of the whole fertility process meant that I didn't even really believe in myself that it would work. And it didn't work, it failed. And that's the awful thing about fertility. There's so many unknowns out there. And for me, I just feel so lucky that I do have Sienna. And we have moments like we did with Billy and Sienna, just thinking, God, you know, we've come through it, we've survived.
The other side. Dr. Hilary, what are the options? Because I was amazed to find just how often it doesn't work, things like IVF. It's such an emotional thing to go through, and it doesn't work very often, does it? It's only a quarter of times.
You know, 1 in 7 couples have problems conceiving, and we've talked about the emotions, and of course emotions are they're significant because they can actually get in the way. Once emotions start to play a part, then they can get in the way of all the hormones that are necessary in the cascade system to cause ovulation and conception.
So it's a vicious cycle if you're trying to
absolutely. So I think the first thing is to try and identify the cause of the infertility. That's obviously very logical in order to find out which treatment. Now, people can do a lot with their lifestyle. You did everything you possibly could, but some people just don't know the basics. So it's unbelievable, but people just don't know that you need frequent unprotected sex sometimes at the right time in order to boost your chances of conception. And then, of course, it's about normalising your weight, stopping smoking. Even men, if they smoke, they're reducing their sperm count by 17%. it reduces women's fertility as well. Alcohol, if a woman drinks less than 5 units of alcohol a week, she doubles her chances of fertility in some studies. So simple things like exercise, normalising your weight, healthy food and diet is really important. And then, of course, if nothing's identified, if ovulation is a problem, which it commonly is, then we have medications like clomiphene, metformin, if you've got polycystic ovaries. Then there's surgery, so you might need attention for the fallopian tubes, or a man for his tubes. And then, of course, you've got assisted conception, intrauterine insemination, or IUI, as you had, other forms of IVF. And then, of course, sperm and egg donation. So there are lots of options depending on what the cause is. So don't give up.
Go to your doctor.
Oh, absolutely.
And you know, there are success stories like Claire's, just fight the battles.
And doing everything you can. And once you've tried that and you've given it a fair amount of time, depending on your age, because fertility starts to wane after 35 naturally anyway, you've done all those things, then go to see your GP. And depending on the trust and the local health authority, you may get a chance for IVF or some cycles. Sometimes it's rationed, but there's always help out there.